Okay, in example 3, we're looking at using the factor theorem. Well, the factor theorem just says that if I plug in a number into a synthetic division, if I plug in some a value into it and I run it through and I get a 0 as my remainder, that means that x minus that a value, okay, so for example, if I plug in -6 and I get a 0 at the end, that means that x minus a -6 is a factor of the dividend. So x plus 6 is a factor of that. Okay, and then I can find the remaining factor as long as I have a remainder of 0. So applying that to this question, I have a dividend here, right? And it's a degree of 3, so I should have 4 terms, which I do. So I can put all those out, lead coefficient, next coefficient, next coefficient, next coefficient, 0 in the column, and then I want to put not an 8 but a -8 because I set this equal to 0, this factor equal to 0, and I solve subtracting 8, so -8, the opposite goes in the box here. I add these two, I multiply, I add, I multiply, I add, I multiply, next column 24, I get 0, so my remainder is 0, so that means x minus what's in the box, -8, is a factor, so x plus 8 is a factor of this polynomial, this dividend. So that means, say if I write it out like this, a long division, x plus 8, I get 2x cubed goes in this right here. So if I did long division, I would get an answer of 2x squared, -1x, and a -3. It goes in evenly. Well, they want to find all the remaining factors. So what I can do is I can now look at my answer, my quotient. These are just my A, my B, and my C. I could do quadratic formula, or I could CAB it, right? So C times A is -6. What times what is -6, but adds to -1? Well, that would be a -3 and a 2. So then it would be x minus 3 and an x plus 2. But I have to divide by my A, which is 2. So these are my other factors. X minus 3/2, which I could rewrite as 2x minus 3. I just bring that denominator out front. This one divides evenly into 1, so x plus 1 is also a factor. So these three are my factors, meaning that if I multiplied all three of these binomials out, I would get to my original dividend. I would get to this. X cubed plus x squared minus 11x plus 24. I multiplied all those out, so those are my remaining factors. So I run it through, see if I get a 0. That means x minus whatever that number is in the box is a factor, and then if I have a quadratic, I can solve that by quadratic formula or factoring. If I solve by quadratic formula, those would be my solutions, and so it would be x minus those would be the factors. Okay.